Let's be honest, most non-alcoholic beverages kind of suck. They don't taste good and they're not even that good for you. Oslo is different. Chloe, what is in Oslo that makes it good for your mind, brain, and body?
There's ginkgo, ginseng, magnesium, glycinate, spearmint, lavender, and holy basil. And in this episode, Sam takes us on a journey from being stressed, burnt out, overworked, at what would look like having the dream job at a big four accounting firm and then working in tech to eventually following his own passion and intuition to creating Oslo. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Decision Lab podcast. Today, we are talking to Sam Moore, the founder and CEO of Hazlo. Really excited to get into this one today. Sam, welcome. We're so excited to have you.
Thanks, Chloe. Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited. We got corrected before we jumped on here. It's Oslo. So anyone looking at this, watching this on YouTube, if you read the word, it is Oslo. Let's start with telling us a little bit about yourself. We'll get into the meaning of Oslo because it's really cool. I saw it on the website. I saw it in our story, but I want to start with you first. So tell us a little bit about your life story. How did you become who you are today?
Yeah. Well, I was raised in the Midwest, suburbs of Chicago. So I had a very traditional Midwestern lifestyle. Spent a lot of time at the lake. Where I grew up is right on Lake Michigan. So my family got two older sisters, a younger brother, followed my sisters. Actually, all four of us went to the University of Illinois. So we had a strong family tie there. And I studied finance there. And I went into a big four accounting firm job outside of right after college. So I did a very kind of textbook, followed my sisters to school, did the businessy, major, and then went straight into a pretty traditional, big four accounting firm job. And that's when things shifted for me, is realizing that following the template that other people had laid out was not necessarily what was going to give me fulfillment and take me where I wanted to go. But yeah, I had a really, lovely upbringing. My parents still live in the house that I grew up in. So I'm back in Lake Forest often and seeing them. But yeah, it was a pretty traditional path to get to that point, and then things started to take some turns.
Oh yeah. I grew up near Chicago as well, like Hammond, like south suburb as well. So
Yeah.
kind of a wild time. I remember us talking about that. Something that is just, I think about this all the time. I hear people say, I'm in finance, I'm at one of the big four. What does that actually mean? I know it's a small part of your journey, but what does it mean when you say you're in finance, or what are you doing at those big four places?
Yeah, so the big four is just there's four accounting firms: Ernst & Young, KPMG, Deloitte, and PwC. And so I actually went to college with an econ major. Economics was like my favorite subject in school. I remember taking it AP econ in high school, and that being the first time I felt like I understood the way the world worked. It was like, you make things, it has inherent value, supply and demand. It was one of those moments where everything kind of became clear for me. University of Illinois was weird, or it's different, untraditional, where the econ major was outside of the business school. And I kind of knew that the business school was a more prestigious kind of degree to get from there. So after my first year, I transferred into the business school and studied finance. And very similar to you, until I took a finance class, I genuinely had no idea what finance was. And if I'm sitting here today, I'm still kind of like, what is this thing? But basically, it's just, from my understanding, thinking back on it, was more of like the financial and numbers and equations and projections side of looking at a business. So you're looking at financial reports, looking at accounting statements, and just really trying to understand the way the business works, from money in, money out, and everything like that. But I can't say that I actually cared much about finance while I was studying it. It was just one of those things where I was really good at math my whole life. So that was just something that kind of naturally pulled me in that direction. Yeah, I remember being in college and just knowing that getting a job was the most important thing. You just needed to have a job when you graduated, and that would be a binary success failure type of thing for me. So first semester, senior year, I committed myself to 6 weeks of, I didn't go out a single time. which if you go to a Big Ten school or Illinois is very untraditional to abstain from going to the bars and everything. But I just was like, I'm going to apply to jobs, interview,
Wow.
grind until I get one. And the Ernst & Young was a very prestigious company. It was something that the business school did a lot of stuff to funnel people there, but much more on the accounting side. So the finance department, virtually no one really would go and work there. But I somehow got an interview for the consulting program, so it's business advisory program, and schmoozed my way through some interviews. And before the end of first semester, I had a job, and that was, I remember, like full body relief and thinking that I had made it in life as a 21-year-old. I was like, man, I solved it. I figured out everything. And then very quickly it was a rude awakening on what real life was. But getting into the actual job of it, I, very similar to you, had no idea what it was going to be. I thought I was going to be, they're putting me into these meetings. I'm making decisions for these clients. They're looking at me as this just like whiz kid. In reality, I was just, a hired gun to go and be able to charge high dollar values for very remedial work. The project that I was in was anti-money laundering, which is like, sounds
Dude, that's
super
cool.
Trust me, I'm going to tell you the really cool thing, and then I'll tell you what I actually did. But it was a Mexican subsidiary of Citibank. They, in 2010, got caught for like basically the entire cartel's money was in that bank, so they were just this full-blown money laundering like hotbed. I was
Oh
there
my
in
gosh.
2015. As you might imagine, over the course of 5 years, no cartel's money was in that bank anymore. But they got in such big trouble with like bank regulators that they needed to show they had this really serious anti-money laundering program going. So my job was to fly out on a Sunday and be at the office at 8 a.m. Monday morning. Be there for 12 hours. Mind you, we're in these windowless rooms in like Tampa, Florida, and just sit there and look at, one-off person writing a $500 check to their grandma, and that was outside of their typical spending for that month. And so I'd have to go and spend 2 hours validating that that person was not in the cartel. And then write a little write-up of it. And I did that 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every single day for like 9 months. And it was mind-numbing. But yeah,
Oh
that was
my
my
God.
anti-money laundering Ernst & Young experience.
Bro, that experience makes me feel like I need an Oslo like right now. Just
It
to
would have
survive.
helped me a lot in those times, yeah, because that was
Dude,
Yeah.
I was also living the consulting lifestyle. I got per diem every day, so I'm going out, eating out, drinking most nights, and part of what made that a really not great setting for me was I just got to like a really bad place physically, mentally. Not seeing the sun for a year was like not ideal for me personally. So yeah, there's a lot of things working against me beyond just the finance and not really caring that much about the actual work that I was doing.
And so from consulting, then you pivoted and went into entrepreneurship.
I spent 5 years doing a whole other career as well.
Okay.
I can dive into the next chapter.
Yeah, tell
So
us the next chapter.
the Ernst & Young experience, as I just shared, was not ideal. And I remember just going back to like feeling in college when I got this job and I was making more money than all my friends. I was working at the company that was ranked the #1 place for a recent college grad to go work for, and I was experiencing something that just didn't feel good. Like I just was not happy or fulfilled in any capacity during it. But that was really difficult for me to kind of reconcile because I thought like everyone from the outside was telling me that I made it. Like I crushed it. I am doing what everyone else wished they were doing. That was my peers. And I, meanwhile, felt terrible most days. But I remember, so was working in Tampa mostly, but I got transferred within the same project to go work in LA. And I, cross country travel. I remember I got to LA that first week and I'm like, I can't handle a 4.5 hour flight back to Chicago just to fly 4.5 hours back here on Sunday. So I'm gonna do something else. And my friend, one of my best friends from college, was in grad school at University of San Francisco at the time. So I'm like, Anthony, I'm gonna come visit you. Would love to check it out. I've heard San Francisco's cool. I've never been there. And I go to San Francisco and I remember it being like the first time I like saw the sun and felt happiness in a year. It was just something about the vibration of the place, and just, the energy there, but also it was, gorgeous weekend in February. Like I was leaving the really dreary, cold, snowy Midwest, and the windowless room of LA, and then got to San Francisco, and I'm like, oh, like the heavens had opened up. And I remember leaving that weekend, had like an incredible weekend. I'm like, I don't know what's happening here, but I think I'm supposed to be here. So I ended up having a conversation with a friend of mine from high school. His cousin happened to be doing sales for a company called Okta in the Bay Area. And he's like, if you liked it so much, like, I can hook you up with my cousin, and, let's see what can happen. And so within, I want to say, 45 days of me first setting my foot there, I decided I was quitting my job at EY and was going to move to San Francisco to go work in the software space. So that's where part two of my career starts. And I go to San Francisco, I'm able to like normalize so much of my life that was regulate a lot of my life that was dysregulated in the UI days. So I was sleeping in my own bed every night. Incredible. Like, oh my God. I remember that being the most, like, waking up on a Wednesday in my own bed and taking a shower was like euphoria for me at that time. Never mind that sometimes it was like living in a hostel because I couldn't find an apartment in San Francisco because it was such an insane time to be there. But nevertheless, it was magical. But I worked at the company Okta for 2 years. It was amazing. Like EY had a lot of incredible people, but I remember looking at the individuals that were like 5 years ahead of me, at like the manager level and things like that, and just being like, I want nothing to do with the life that they live. Like where I'm working towards is nothing close to what I aspire to be. And then contrast that with Okta and software sales and just kind of like people being, masters of their own universe, so to speak. Like I work really hard so I can make a lot of money and I can do things that I want to do with my life. And I'm like, wow, that makes sense. Kind of like same as the econ thing of like this compute of like input in, I get this output, I live this life. I really, it crystallized really well for me on what to do. So that was a great experience for me. Met some incredible people. I was very fortunate to be there while they went through like the IPO process. So, which, most people who work in the software space do not experience that. I was just so green. I'm like, oh, we just crush it and everyone does really well. And then the company IPOs. It's like, this is what happens with this business. So that was amazing. And then I think the biggest thing that happened towards the end of my tenure there was really just, you go through an IPO, naturally things change at a company, right? Like I joined and I was like 450th employee. By that point, it was well over 1,000, and just there's so many more rules and regulations, guidelines. Excuse me, sorry. Just things that you have to kind of adhere to that were not in place before. And I remember just kind of being like, this is reminding me way too much of the UI bureaucracy right now. So I need to find my exit really quickly. And so that's when I started looking for the next thing. So I ended up working for another software company. Met this guy, is his name, unbelievable person, but he had started this company in the South Bay. That was, this is 2017, so well before what we're going through now, which is this like AI, renaissance or revolution right now. He and his co-founders had developed like the first real large language models. And I remember, at the time the application was this better for you, like a better version of a chatbot. So you can talk to it in like regular things, and unlike it being like a menu display, it would actually respond to you with real things based off of these other documents. And the first time I saw that demo, I'm like, this is staged. Like this seems so unreal. Now, just before this, I'm talking to ChatGPT and it's the same deal. But at the time it was revolutionary. And so I go and I was the 19th employee there. Very early, and we like all 19 of us were in a single room. It was very like Silicon Valley, if you've ever seen the show on HBO. I'm like sitting next to the engineers across from the CEO, and it was a really cool experience to be like at the ground level of building something. And Chloe, this is kind of where the entrepreneurial itch came from, because up until that point, as I said earlier in the story, I didn't know like finance. I didn't care about. I just knew wanted to like be in the business school or do business. And it sounded cool, but I'm like, that is actually not at all what I wanted to do. So I get into sales, and sales was great because it made sense. But I remember just being like, this feels so one dimensional. Like I feel like I'm only doing this one thing over and over and over again. And I didn't have words for it at the time, but I had this like craving for additional things. I wanted to be more creative. I wanted to do things outside of just purely hop on a Zoom call, tell you about our chatbot software, and have you sign a contract. And while that kind of like awakening was happening within me, I'm sitting across from Mahesh is his name. Like I said, incredible guy, but he was the first person I saw running a company ever in my life. So I would like watch him work. And while I'm crafting my next cold email to try to get somebody to respond to me, he's thinking about, okay, we're growing in this capacity. I need to hire people for this. We are, about to be raising money. What investors do I need to talk with? We're getting this feedback from our customers about this product, expansion needed. And I just saw him like making decisions and leading a company and just kind of like doing everything that I had never seen done before. But I'm like, that is what I want to do. That's the job that I've looked for my entire life. And so that's when I kind of shifted my brain into this kind of entrepreneurial space. And that's where, the story of Oslo kind of begins. But I can pause there so I don't run away and talk for too many minutes in a row without you all hopping in.
No, it's beautiful. That's quite the story. You've been all over the place throughout all of that time. You've mentioned a couple of challenges, like being in like a windowless room and things like that. What has been the biggest obstacle you had to overcome in that journey, or challenge you had to overcome to get where you are today?
Yeah. I mean, not just because I'm talking to two neuroscientist friends here, but definitely the mental side of it all was really where I ran into the most troubles and challenges. And I think the biggest thing was not really knowing what was happening, right? And so I talk about the going into work for EY and having this like really just horrible experience, for lack of a better term. I was flying in on Sunday night. I was there till Friday afternoon. I would get home on the weekends, like 9 p.m. on Friday. I would be in Chicago for 36 hours. And at that time, just out of college, and I thought like what I was supposed to be doing was like going out and partying with my friends. So like 36 hours consecutively of like drinking and partying, only to wake up on Sunday feeling just absolutely depleted and need to like throw my stuff back in a suitcase and fly back out. And I remember, again, this external validation that I would get from everyone being like, dude, it's so cool that you have like status on an airline. It's so cool that you're out to dinner on a Wednesday night and somebody else is paying for it. And I remember being like, okay, I think this is supposed to be good, but I hate this right now. I despise my day-to-day life. And I think that the inability to kind of recognize that it was okay for me to feel differently about this than what everyone was telling me, because I didn't have the tools yet to kind of work through that, really led me to like being in a dark place mentally, just feeling depressed and, feeling like I needed to present that things were great and I was loving and I was thriving and doing these things. But meanwhile, when, I was not talking to somebody, I'm in this hotel room by myself after working 12-hour days. I'm just like, man, I don't enjoy this at all. So that was like a big challenge then. And I think it showed up in several different things, like that same kind of formula of it seeming like I'm excelling. Like I go straight from that to go to a software company that IPOs. Like, again, that doesn't happen for people. Like the first software company we go work for, you happen to be there for the 2 years leading up to an IPO, and you become friends with like all these people who are all just total badasses and really smart and really competent, and the company is really well run. So I make these friends in San Francisco, and the same kind of thing happens where they're like, I wish I was in your shoes. I wish I was, in working for Okta and not XYZ other company. And that was a much more enjoyable day to day for me. But I remember, again, towards the end, I'm like, I'm just feeling, I don't feel right here. I don't feel good. But I felt like it wasn't okay for me to express that because everyone was telling me that I was in the best position. And then, this similar thing happens again. Like I go work for this other company, Solvi, and that company I had left to go on my own journey before this, but ends up being acquired by Zoom. So, another incredible, well-run, the CEO is awesome. I've been friends with everyone there. We're building like actually good, cool, new, never before seen software. I'm the top salesperson. I'm closing the biggest deals that the company's ever closed, and I'm making more money than I've ever made. And again, it's this thing where like I'm being told from the outside that this is the pinnacle. Like this is like you have what everyone else wants. You should be so happy right now. And then remember like closing the biggest deal. I sold a deal to Ring, the doorbell company, and that was like enormous. They were like, they were blowing up, and this is the biggest deal. And I remember like the contract being signed, and I'm at this office and I see it show up, and the entire company knew about this. The entire company was waiting for this moment, and I should have in that moment been like euphoric, high fist pump, let me announce to everybody. And I remember like seeing it and trying to close out the Salesforce deal and leave the office before anyone recognized that I closed the deal. Like I just wanted to be so far away from that moment and having no clue why. Like I didn't like there was nothing inherently bad about what was happening. It wasn't right for me for whatever reason. But that's like the being able to come to terms with the fact that like if it isn't right for me, it doesn't really matter that everybody else thinks it's the perfect thing for whomever.
How did you get here? How did you get to this realization? There's a lot of people that get stuck in the matrix of other people's expectations and never escape. So did you have a support system, a therapist, a coach, like a friend? Like how did you escape?
It's a great question because I think I've been trying to kind of retroactively figure out where the decisions came from. I mean, as terrible as it was to be in a depressed space for that time, it put me in a situation where like if I stay where I'm at, this is a really, really bad path, like a really dark path that I would be going down. And it makes any alternative seem like even if it's the most insane decision, like it's at least better than that. And I remember, the decision to leave Ernst & Young was not one that was well received. I'm working like literally the number one rated place to work for a new college grad was where I was working at, and making great money and but I'm the most depressed I've ever been. And I remember just like that moment in San Francisco, I'm like, I need to be there. Like this windowless room right now is killing me. I don't know how or why, but it is. And then that place seems like a haven for me. But my parents or my friends or they don't know that. They're like, wait, you're leaving the most, like I can tell all my friends that you work at Ernst & Young. They know what that is.
Yeah.
What the frick is Oakdale? Like, what is this thing that you're going to go play in San Francisco and do something else? And so I remember it was my 23rd birthday. I have this, I've already accepted this job offer, but mind you. So I went to San Francisco, 6-week interview process happens, and I'm like locked in, I'm moving there. They're like, cool, your start date's in May. That whole time I was like so nervous to tell my family. So I just didn't. I was still prime procrastination mode of like, let's just put off the difficult conversation. But yeah, it's my birthday in April. I have brunch with my family. And I remember we're sitting around, talking and bring up like, hey, no, I'm not really enjoying my job. I'm thinking about like leaving or looking for something else. And instantaneously, I remember my dad and one of my two sisters being like, that's stupid. Just like instantaneously dismissing it.
Jeez.
And mind you, I've already accepted a job. So like this is not like so I'm like, that's not what I'm looking for. I can wait a little bit, another Bloody Mary, and get a little bit more liquid courage type of thing. And I'm like, so I actually found this company. It's called They've got these incredible investors. They're doing these things. Actually, same with my buddy from high school connecting with his cousin. Like Sam's cousin works there. It seems like a great thing. And again, my dad and sister are like, "What are you talking about? You work for Ernst & Young. You've got a name." But that's when my mom and my other sister were like, "Whatever you want to do, I just want you to be happy." And then the third time, I was like, I gotta be honest, I've already accepted this job. We can either keep telling me how stupid I am for making this decision, or we can figure out how I'm going to make this work. And I remember just like silence at the table. And so I mean, it was one of those things where like in that moment I was petrified. Like, I
Yeah.
remember feeling so confident in that decision, and then I remember like a couple weeks after this, you know, my family wasn't the most like they were like not unsupportive. They didn't like bury me for that decision, but I remember them like side eyeing me and be like, you know, I don't think this is gonna work. And then I go and I move there, and I remember like getting off the flight. I'm in the Uber heading to my friend's house who I was staying with temporarily, and just looking at him like, what if this wasn't a decision? What if I just ruined my life? And fortunately, you know, it was I didn't have much time. There was a very like fast paced life that I was living, and that was great. And it distracted me from even thinking about it. And luckily, my parents came out to visit like a couple months after I moved there, and I remember walking around with my dad, and you know, like we're halfway through day one of him being there, and we you know walked across the city somewhere. He just looks at me, he's like, "I get it now. Like I see why you're here," and that was like a cool, validating moment. And again, to go back to like what got me to make the decision was it was really just I had no other choice, or felt like I had no other choice at that time. Like if I stayed where I was, I knew it would be a bad outcome. And this was seemingly not my only choice, but like the best of my options to go somewhere else that seemed like a step forward. And, you know, being able to, it was the first time I really had gone outside of like the external approval, right? Like I went to University of Illinois. I thought it was a good school. I thought it would be fun, but it was like my sisters went there, so everyone thinks that's good. And you know, I worked at Ernst & Young, not because I was like necessarily that interested in it, but it's like they pay me more than other places, and everyone thinks that's a good job. But this is the first time where I felt disapproval of a decision, but stayed like grounded or firm, and like I know this is right for me. And to have the outcome that ended up happening, which you know, my dad and my parents end up approving it. The company I worked for IPOs. It was a lot of very validating things of like maybe I'm not so stupid that I need to follow somebody else's path necessarily. Like I might have an idea of what's right for me. And that kind of I've carried that through with other decisions, you know, like ultimately leaving software and choosing to start a beverage brand.
Love it.
That's an amazing story. And I think it's so important for people to realize that like the external validation isn't what's going to make you happy. Like you had the a fancy title, you work for the fancy company, you had the approval of your parents and your friends, and it's like that's actually not what makes you happy. It's like you have to live a life that's sincere and genuine to you and that deeply fulfills you, and that might not resonate with everybody else. And Cody and I both have our experiences with
Dude,
that, very much so, in
100%. I feel like every
entrepreneurship.
founder does.
Yeah.
How
I
did
think every
you
founder goes through it.
develop that like internal sense of self or that internal approval, or is it still a work in progress?
I think it's still a work in progress. I think because even that decision, right? Like I knew it was the right decision after I eventually earned the external approval, right? Like I was still uncertain of it until my parents were like, "Good call," and the company did well. And so I think it was a thing that I had to continue to learn. I've always been a very introspective person, which early in life was just like overthinking and being super anxious all the time. But later, as I found tools to kind of like you know handle that or take advantage of it. Today, I mean, I journal every day. There's a practice called morning pages where you write, you know, 3 pages nonstop. And it's that single-handedly has kept me sane for the last like multiple years of running this business. It was a realization of I have all this going on in my brain. I don't need to keep it there. Like keeping it there is what's actually and me writing it down and being able to like process through and you know I think this is for anyone that journals, right? You'll write something down, you'll have this like crazy fear or anxiety or think that you made a huge mistake, and I watch myself in real time talk myself off the ledge and be able to like process through actually this isn't or here's the way that it can go. And just that is I think the one of the most powerful tools that I have now. But yeah, at the time it was guess and check. It was like, I think this is what I'm supposed to do. And okay, everyone said it was good. All right, cool, sick. And then like moving to the next company, again, a lot of people were like, the company just IPO'd, man. Like you have more stock options vesting. Why are you leaving? And again, I was like, yeah, breathe. I don't know. Like I have no idea why I can't be in this space, but I need to get the F out of here. And so I go to the next company, and again, a lot of questions, less so from my parents because they're like, well, we don't know anything about software. He seems to know a little bit. So like, we'll let him run. But I still remember like he was not my sister's husband yet, but my now brother-in-law, his uncle, for some reason took a great interest in me and my career. I don't know why, but I think he saw IPO, he bought some of the stock, and that was a really good buy for most people if you bought the stock early on. And so when I left, I remember hearing through the grapevine of my him to my sister or whatever, like, dude, this is a big mistake. Why are you leaving here? This seems like a home run company. But again, I'm like, I don't know. I think I need to go to this like gritty, grimy, we're in Palo Alto in a one room office and just like hustling. One conference room that I'm taking all my calls, and we're literally making up prices every day of what to charge people just to see who will say yes. And like that called me. But again, it's like, I think that was going to Solvay was the name of the company. Going to that company was the first time that I didn't really receive any external validation, I guess, until I was like closing big deals and making a ton of money. But that first part was like really, again, being like, did I make a colossal mistake? Like, is this just really, is everyone been right that I'm just kind of like flying by the seat of my pants and it's just a house of cards waiting to fall? But yeah, I think that through that, the next chapter is like the pandemic hit. So I was still working there in 2020. And that was when I really was kind of forced I didn't have any of my typical outlets, going to the gym, anything like that. Not really realizing that that's what was keeping me sane a lot of times. But that's when I turned to journaling and just like having an ability to like process stuff that helped me ultimately make the decision to like, I need to quit this job and go all in on this idea that I've had for a while.
Love that. Let's dive into to Oslo. Quick note on journaling though. It's interesting you say that, and so many people say it. Journaling really does get stuff out of the default mode of your brain, the default mode network of your brain, where it bounces around and makes you anxious because you can't see it. And because we visually process more, our brain, 70% of our brain is for visual processing. When you put it down on a page, you can see it. So 70% more of your brain can actually see what's going on, and you can process it more effectively when it's out of your head. And so it's interesting. Journaling has been so helpful for you. It's been super helpful for me recently as well, doing rumination journals and things like that, going through like a breakup recently. And you're so right. It just gets everything out and you're like, oh, this feels way less bad now.
Totally. And I'm on my day, we can get to this part later, but I do a lot of challenges for myself. So I'm on like day 60 of a 60-day challenge that I did for me to, recommit to the journaling practice, and then also do a couple other things. But a lot of it had to do with these big investor and retail sales kind of goals that I had for myself. And every day, I had this big goal that I needed to do, and I would like wake up just so stressed and anxious about it. And then I'd spend 15 minutes writing it down. Wait, life's pretty good. Okay, cool. Let's go to it's an incredible way to just like completely regulate my nervous system without doing anything other than just like write down what I'm thinking about.
All right, let's move into the claim to fame section here. Let's start it off with just a 60-second pitch. 60 seconds. Why should we care what Oslo is? And tell us more about it. Go.
Yeah. So we are a non-alcoholic beverage brand. We make the best tasting, best feeling, best for you beverages on the market. And they taste incredible. Like, I can't understate that or overstate that enough. But yeah, so I think and as anyone that's been listening to this conversation so far, a non-alcoholic product is probably not what you would expect me to go forward with. So that's its own evolution of realizing that I needed to cut back on some alcohol intake. But yeah, it's a super tasty drink that has incredible ingredients in there that are designed to help you feel your best by reducing stress, reducing anxiety, helping your brain operate at the best level with some of the ingredients that we have.
Love that. And how did you get here? Well, actually, two things. Well, yeah, let's start with how did you get here? How did you go from the large language model startup to Oslo?
Yeah. So I mentioned kind of like Mahesh and watching my CEO work and being like, that's what I want to do. So that happened pretty quickly after I joined the company in 2017. And I remember just in 2017 to 2018, I was just like, I'm not supposed to be in this role forever. I'm eventually supposed to be that guy. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that means. And I remember, the deals closing, and I had that moment where like I want to run away after I do this really incredible thing, and I'm about to make more money in a day than I've ever made in my life, right? Like that type of a thing. And being like, I don't think software is for me. Like, I think it has to be somewhere else other than software. So those are the two kind of framing things that put me in this mindset of, I know I want to start a business or be the CEO of a business, and I know it probably can't be in software. What else is there? And around the same time, it was the first time that I had conversations with people in other settings about like what we're eating, what we're drinking, everything like that. This like mindful consumption movement and conversation started to happen. And I remember, at that time, I was entertaining clients all the time. I was doing work happy hours, and I was drinking 5, sometimes 6 nights a week. Um, and I also would just wake up feeling awful all the time. Like, this might sound crazy. I think those two are correlated. I feel like there's something happening here with how much I'm drinking and how bad I'm feeling. But again, it's like we grew up in the Midwest, Big Ten school, Big Four accounting firm, software sales. Like alcohol was everywhere. Like I couldn't go to any function where another human being was present and not have alcohol be a central piece of it. And so it was another one of those moments where I'm like, I don't think that this is good for me or right for me or whatever. But everyone around me seems to like love this and feel great all the time, or, really, really thrive on this type of environment. So I have this like internal kind of dilemma for myself of, I'm going to this work happy hour. The last thing I want to do is buy an alcoholic drink, but I feel like I'm supposed to. I feel obligated to be with this person. When they order a beer, I order a beer. When they order an old fashioned, I order an old fashioned. I'm like, what? Why can't there just be something that's like okay for me to order that's like actually different? Why does that not exist? And I think at that time, this is like 2017, 2018. I think Athletic Brewing had started then, but there was really no non-alcoholic anything other than like O'Doul's, which you would be laughed out of a room if you ordered that. But I had this like kind of internal dilemma. And so I remember visiting my friend in San Francisco, or in New York at the time. And we were going out, and New York also, they tend to drink there a little bit. So we're like out and about, and I'm at these things, this, I remember like one of those people telling me, if you drink nothing but tequila sodas, you're actually like, this solves drinking. Like you'll never get a hangover, all these other things. And I'm like, I don't think that's true, but like we could try it. I mean, I'm like, I'll try anything, right? Like and I remember like I drank tequila sodas for a day. And this is not really where people normally come up with like a non-alcoholic product, but I remember being like, wait, just the simple decision of like, I'm drinking this, and not like I'm at a bar, somebody buys me a shot, somebody buys me a beer, something like whatever. I'm just drinking whatever's coming my way. Having some like actual intention about what I choose to drink, I see some positive benefits from that. And I think this is like, that's where I want to explore. And I remember being like walking down the streets of Manhattan, turning my buddy Danny and being like, I think I just came up with something. I don't know what's happening. I remember like going to this like other party, feeling all like festive. I'm like, dude, just came up with an idea. This is great. And then the next day I woke up and I'm like, that idea is so dumb. What are you doing? Like, what's happening?
Oh,
But I remember, so at that time, I just had this like kernel of an idea of like something in the beverage drink world that would make me feel better instead of worse. That was kind of the thesis of these things. I couldn't stop thinking about it. And so 2019 comes around, and I sit down with Mahesh, and I'm like, hey, I know it sounds crazy, but I have a kernel of an idea for a beverage company that I can't stop thinking about. And I think I need to go like explore this. And not that I'm not going to quit. I don't want to quit. I actually need to pay my bills still. But I think I need to move back home to Chicago, or just like get out of this space and get into a different space for me to kind of think about what this is. And he's the man, and just was like, yeah, like, well, you can work. This remote work didn't really exist very much at that time. But he was like, you'll work remote and it'll be fine. Like, just, hit your numbers. That's all we care about. And so I go back to Chicago, and I have this kernel of an idea. And I remember the best decision that I made when I moved was like, two things. So the first one was I would work from home sometimes in San Francisco, and I noticed myself be so unproductive every single day. And I'm like, and it would be, I would roll out of bed late. I would not get dressed for the day. I would do all these things, and I would just be the least productive that I was for the week on that day. I'm like, if I am planning to still succeed at the software company and come up with a business, I need to do that so differently. So like I'm locking in on like crazy good routine every day. Let's go, wake up early, go to the gym, take a shower, get dressed for work, even when you're not going into the office. So that was number one. The second thing that I decided was I know nothing about the beverage space, like literally nothing other than I drink it sometimes, right? Like, okay, how do I learn? Like, I could go to school, but I don't really have time for that. I'm just going to talk to every single person on the face of the earth that is willing to have a conversation with me. Bonus points if they're in the sphere, but I just want to talk to people because like one person will lead to another person and on it goes. And as I did that, and I recognized this is the guy, I recognized that as I tried to articulate what my idea was over and over and over again, I started to actually figure out what my idea was. It was kind of like my first form of journaling, but out loud, like just like practicing, this is what I'm trying to do, and having it fall completely flat and be like, this is what I'm trying to do. So I did that over and over again. And I ended up having, a conversation with a family friend who is, a lawyer. And she is a lawyer for a bunch of companies, but one of them was like another friend of hers that has this like seasoning spice company. So she like says like, hey, go talk to my friend Meg. So I get a call with Meg. I'm like, Meg, this is the idea I have. She's like, okay, I'm going to stop you right there. I don't know anything about the beverage world. You need to talk to my friend Eden. I'm like, okay, let's try this again. So I get on the call with Eden, and I remember having this like very rushed 10-minute conversation. But something about that conversation was like, I'm supposed to like talk to her more. I know that I'm supposed to talk to her more. About what? I have no idea. And so over the course of 4 months, I'm like, I think it needs to be in person. So I'm like trying to schedule a coffee meeting with her. We keep rescheduling, like schedules don't work out. And all this, while this is happening, I was kind of working with, they're called formulators, like a company that makes drinks and formulas for a living. And, as we've discussed, I had really no idea what I was trying to make. So this was just throwing crap at the wall, seeing what stuck, and it all tasted horrible. And I had no idea what I was ultimately trying to make. But I remember being like, okay, I'm working on this. Eden, we'll talk about like beverage entrepreneurship. That'll be great. Eden was a part owner of like a really great cocktail bar in Chicago, owned like 4 businesses. Somebody who I instantly was like, total badass, would love to just pick her brain. And we had this coffee meeting, kind of like ongoing scheduling based on this beverage entrepreneurship tie. Well, during that 4 months that I finally like, the guy stops responding to me that's like making me this drink because I'm just completely all over the place and have no idea what I'm doing. I end up like breaking up with him more or less and just having that end. Trying to find somebody else to like make me this drink, but every time I get to the point of committing to that, I'm like, that feels like the same relationship I'll have as the last guy. So I end up doing nothing. And then in October of 2019, I just decided that I need to like shelve this idea. Like I think I still want to do entrepreneurship, but like this idea isn't it. I'm going to go, either get my MBA or go to, Colorado, ski bumming for a while, what have you. And that same week, literally a day later, Eden emails me being like, I have time for me for coffee on Thursday. Like come down to the city. Like let's meet up. And I remember reading that email being like, this sucks. I have to tell her that I'm not doing this anymore, or I need to make up an excuse as to why I can't go and blow it off. But something about that moment was like, I should probably just go. Like she seems like somebody who would be good to know anyway. Like worst case scenario, I'll just make a friend. I don't know what the best case is, but we'll go from there. And we go get coffee, and I sit down, and I remember it being like, just a very innocuous, how's it going? And I just reflexively spend 20 minutes just telling her how freaking awful it is trying to come up with a beverage. And just for 20 minutes, like, God, everyone, I feel like I'm taking advantage of all the time. I don't even know what I'm trying to do. I just know I'm trying to go here, but how do I get there? Like just this ongoing, flow of how terrible it is to try to do this. And then about 20 minutes go by, like literally 20 minutes straight. And I remember like instantly becoming aware that I should not be talking for 20 minutes straight in this conversation. I get like super red and just like really quiet. And I remember Eden just sitting across from me and she's like, Sam, entrepreneur to entrepreneur. I don't know anyone that has ever built something that has not been exactly where you are right now. It is a very lonely, challenging, hard journey that we're all on. And, I empathize with you there. Then she's like, also, I don't know if you know this, but I consult on the side and just make drinks for a living. Can I make this drink for you? And I remember being like, what? Why did you let me talk for 20 minutes about how terrible this is when you could have just solved this problem? But it was in that moment that I met this person who, like, I think that was different about that is I wasn't trying to present my idea in a specific way or like, act like I had this whole thing solved. I just told her, like, I have this idea. It's really messy. I have no idea what it ultimately is supposed to be, but all I know is I can't stop thinking about it. And for her to be like, receive that and just like, I see you and I want to make it for you. Whatever, we'll figure it out what it is as we go. Like, let's go. And that was like a really pivotal turning point for me to kind of go into the beverage space. And so we ended up working together for a couple months and came up with what is now our lime and mint flavor for the beverage.
Damn. What, and talk to us about Oslo, the name as well. What does the name mean, and how did you come to the name based on this entire story?
Yeah. So the name came about very soon after that moment in New York where I was like, this is where I'm supposed to play. And that was like another time where I kind of was like, I think I'm supposed to go do this thing, but it like no one believes me or no one thinks that that's a good idea. Everyone thinks I should be here. And I remember for some reason it was like the first thing I need to do, I need to come up with a name. Like, I don't know why when you're starting something, you always have to name it first before you can do anything else. I think I've talked to so many people where it's a similar thing. So yeah, it just was like, okay, well, let's just see if I can come up with a name. And I remember I was just scrolling on my phone one day and those like random kind of like pop-up type things happen. For some reason, it was like a Spanish language one. I don't know why, what I was searching for, but it was like a Spanish dictionary, and on it said Oslo, and right underneath it said "do it." And I remember getting this like full body chills, like I'm getting it again right now as I tell the story, like full body chills. I'm like, that's the name. What? Like, okay. And I remember going home and like searching online, like there's got to be another company that's called Oslo and do it, and all this other stuff, but none of them existed. And I was so, being somebody, I'm not like a native Spanish speaker, but I grew up, taking Spanish classes. My Spanish teacher was one of the people who wrote a college recommendation letter for me. So I've always had a very close connection to Spanish. And for some reason that word showing up in that moment, kind of validating that this idea is not completely crazy, but like something I should pursue, is what stuck with me and what I chose to name the company.
Really cool. Now, Hazlo has adaptogens, electrolytes. It's a good for you beverage. So how should people feel when they drink it? What's the experience like?
Yeah. Well, I'm hopping back to the eating conversation. So as I've said multiple times, I knew nothing how to make a drink. It was not, I knew what tasted good and what didn't. That was about it. Eden is someone she had actually learned after this too. She was like won James Beard Awards, is one of the most nationally recognized mixologists in the country, that I, very serendipitously had that conversation with. And I remember, again, at that time, I wasn't sober, but I was like, I need to change how I'm drinking, and I would ideally just like to feel better all the time. So I was like, hey, can we do something? There's ingredients that we can use that are going to like help my body kind of regulate and bounce back, and like whether it be a hangover cure or just like on a day-to-day basis feel better. And so she very well versed in all of these kind of like homeopathic things, and basically we developed what's essentially an herbal tea. So we're brewing like tea with whole roots of Panax red ginseng, ginkgo biloba leaves, magnesium glycinate, all these ingredients that were, as I was talking to her, she's like, Panax red ginseng, this is great for, overall circulation and getting blood flow to different areas of your body. And it actually will help your body like rid the toxins way faster, whether that's from drinking or just living. Or like ginkgo biloba, one of the main reasons why you feel, terrible, is like your brain is not operating at 100% capacity. You're either dehydrated, or there's all these different things that you can do. But ginkgo biloba actually like allows your brain to like wake up more, even if you are, in a subdued space. Magnesium glycinate. This is when I learned that every single human on the face of the earth is magnesium deficient. And magnesium is like a very essential nutrient, or nutrient for you to process vitamin D. And vitamin D is what makes all of us happy. It's like, okay, if you have more magnesium, then if you are in the sunlight, all of a sudden you just feel better. And so it was all these ingredients. I got a first class kind of education on these things that we can consume in an everyday life that will make us feel better on a day-to-day basis. So the ultimate goal is kind of the way, the scientific thing is like, it helps your body return to homeostasis, like whatever dysregulation is happening, whether that's just anxiety spike, you're feeling stressed, you wake up with a hangover, like whatever thing occurred that puts you into a stressful space, it'll bring you back to center and feel really good for that day and beyond.
I love that. When you were well, let's move into the lab, because this is the perfect time to do that. The lab section is kind of where we get into the science. When you were doing some of these early experiments with all of these adaptogens and all of the different things that you're putting in here, was there a moment that you were like, whoa, like this might actually work, or that you like felt different, or someone outside of you with an expectation bias was like, dude, this is kind of doing something?
It didn't, that has absolutely happened. It didn't happen until later, if I'm being honest. And I think for me, a lot of it had to do with the close tie still to like alcohol and drinking. And, the initial kind of go-to-market play for this was like, let's make it a mixer. So if somebody's drinking alcohol, pair it with alcohol, and it will either lessen the hangover effects or make you feel better than you would otherwise. And so at that time, when I first started, like I knew kind of at a high level, or just kind of like from reading the websites or the stuff online about what this does, I knew it was good for me, but I very minimally felt like transformative experiences from it. But when I went to go sell it, I started selling it like farmers markets in Colorado. And I remember interacting with people, and like we had a tagline like tequila's favorite mixer. Like it was very alcohol focused in terms of that. But as I was working at these farmers markets, I would have, people would come and they would come back, and the stuff, it tasted really good, but I would always be asked like, what do you like about this? What drinks are you making? Trying to learn as much as I could about that. And I remember it was, her name's Blair, but one of my early customers, me trying to like probe deeper, and her being like, Sam, I gotta tell you something. Like, I don't drink that. I'm like, what? You're like, I mean, drink this on its own, I'll mix it with some soda water, I'll make a mocktail with it. Like, I basically drink it with everything but. I'm like, cool. That's cool. That's amazing. Like, she's like, yeah, it makes me feel so good. Like, I don't need any sort of substance with this. Like, I just drink this for the night, and I'm just in a better mood overall. I was like, that's interesting. And that was when I first started kind of like going down, and it happened at a time in my life too, where I personally stopped drinking so much for a lot of reasons. One being, being hungover, it hurt more, number one. Number two, it was like I was running this business by myself, and like I needed all of my mental capacity in order to do this. And if I was diminished in any way, like that would severely impact my ability to pay rent. So I needed to like make sure. So I stopped drinking as much. And I remember feeling super insecure that I was this founder of this tequila mixer, and people would come up to me assuming that I'm this like tequila connoisseur, and I would just kind of like fake my way through it. But so somebody coming and being like, I don't drink this with alcohol. Like I just like it on its own. Like you're my golden ticket. Let's go that way. And so I started, promoting it in that way, and really for myself, drinking it that way. But that was when, I would have like my aunt randomly call me up. This is my aunt that I don't think has been to a doctor in probably 25 years. And I also don't really talk to her on the phone very often, but Aunt, I love you. But I remember getting a call from her out of the blue and be like, this is weird. And she called me just to be like, hey, I don't know what is going on with your drink, but it makes me feel the best I have felt in decades. And if I ever feel any sort of cold or any sort of, just under the weather, I pour myself a glass of your drink, add a little bit of water to it, and, I feel better within a day. I was like, that's interesting. And I have a buddy of mine who had like a super botched, dental surgery, and he had to
Oh,
get like he was supposed to get a filling. The person just like really bad. Honestly, I don't want to go into details because it'll give everyone horror stories of going to the dentist. But he like for 3 weeks couldn't like eat solid food, and he was like, he gave me up. He placed a massive order, a massive order. He's like, I drink 3 of these a day, and it is the only thing that provides me relief from my upset stomach because of all these pills I'm taking, and also just like, and the thing that doesn't irritate there. I'm like, okay, interesting. And, this is a little bit later, but, getting to the point where a friend of a friend, his mom, very unfortunately, gets diagnosed with breast cancer, and she's going through chemotherapy treatment and just has like a very like upset stomach all the time. It just kind of feels blah. Like anyway, I've never gone through it myself, but my friends or people I know, you kind of feel very bad all the time. And he brought her some Oslo one day randomly after she got back from the treatment. She drank it and like instantly felt herself feel better, and to the point where she thought like he laced it with something, right? Like was like giving her extra doses of something. And he's like, no, here's the drink. And now like every time she comes back from treatment, it's what she reaches for in order to drink. And so these kind of like stories and recognizing for myself too, I guess adding in a thing here, as I chose to cut out alcohol in a massive way of my life, and feeling that like social anxiety in those settings and being in those places where that person's ordering a beer, what do I do? Like that person's drinking, taking a shot right now, what do I do? Drinking my drink quelled my anxiety. Like I just felt more comfortable in that space and more at ease than I have at any other time. Like it very akin to like that first drink that you would have, with alcohol, but lo and behold, you don't like go down the slippery slope of feeling terrible later in the night and the next day. All of a sudden you just feel better overall. So it was a very slow, thing. And unfortunately, I'm realizing that the thing is more externally telling me that this was something that was good again. But, at least it was in the right direction.
speaking of external forces, do you guys have like a lot of these things are anecdotal, which is awesome. Do you guys have research or third party validation or anyone that's kind of verified any of this stuff yet, or any research behind your guys' product
We,
yet? I know you're early, but just curious.
Yeah, we have not funded any studies. I'm in the process of working with that. We're actually the chief science officer for Whoop. The Whoop bands. She is a recent friend. Yeah, there you go. Dr. Kristen Holmes. I met her a couple months ago, becoming a friend, and she serendipitously was in the midst of doing this entire study for Whoop around the impacts of alcohol and recovery and all these different things. And I mentioned, this beverage company does all, we're trying to position ourselves in this way. We have these ingredients that have this impact. So we're going to be working with her to potentially build a study. I don't know if Whoop will be involved directly, but she like her coming on as an advisor. So the plan is to get a lot of this stuff validated, but right now it is pretty anecdotal. So hoping to have more kind of concrete science for you here soon.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, I'm just curious. I mean, the last thing then, are there any downside side effects, things that people should watch out for as they're consuming?
So I mean, the only thing is, so ginseng in particular, it is one of those elements, or just really any kind of like herbal thing for women who are pregnant. Like you're advised not to consume. Although now it's coming out that you can drink glasses of wine while pregnant without issue. It's very interesting how the world has decided what's okay and what's not okay in these ways. And I have a lot of both my sisters have had multiple babies while I've been doing this, and I've been drinking it. No issues. So again, anecdotal. So we'll need to get some more from science. But that's like the only thing is it is like ginseng. I think when you are pregnant and you're at the doctor, your OB will tell you like herbal teas are something you shouldn't do. And I think that for ginseng in particular, because the main impact on your body, the adaptive part of it is it improves blood flow, and you like don't really want sometimes like excessive blood flow. But I'm pretty sure, I won't make any claims here, but it is every other part of it is like very, very good, and just inherently positive. I think the only quote unquote negative side effect I've heard from people is if you drink like 7 of them, like you're feeling like pretty elevated, like you're humming at a different level just because
Yeah.
of all the ginseng, and your body's kind of operating at a different level. Kind of feels a little bit like caffeinated, but it subsides in like 20 minutes, and you feel. What's crazy about it is you actually sleep better. Like ginseng, I haven't done the science, but there's so many studies that have shown that ginseng is a great caffeine replacement in the morning, but it actually is proven to help your body like rest and recover at night. So it is a sleep aid as well. So it's a very interesting and I think incredible element out there that we take full advantage of.
Interesting. Yeah, dude, I couldn't imagine drinking 7 of these things. I drink one and I'm feeling like I'm very sensitive to these types of things though in
Yeah.
general. One of them, I only have one left too. I'm waiting for this afternoon to use it or whatever. Dude, I couldn't imagine drinking 7 of them. Or even your buddy that was drinking
Tell
3
me
of them.
tell me
That's
your
crazy.
experience. How's it been enjoying them?
It's been good. I mean, I haven't drank for like 6-7 years now. So
Yeah.
my background's brain science. People ask me, well, why don't you drink? I'm like, well, why do you like your brain shrinking and your brain cells dying every time you take a sip? Like, help me understand that.
Totally.
Like, why am I the
Yeah.
crazy one here? Like, so that's just always clicked for me. But having it as like a alcohol replacement, I didn't need it that way, but still it was kind of cool. Like to be able to say, oh yeah, this is a non-alcoholic thing. And kind of, instead of just being like the Scrooge that's like, don't drink because of brain science, I'm like, don't drink and you should check this out. And I've been
Yeah.
giving it out to people and things like that. So I've loved it. I think it's awesome. And it chills me out, honestly. I'm hyper extroverted generally. So sometimes it helps me like be zen is what it does for
Totally.
me
I
at
mean,
least.
that's I appreciate the feedback there, and I think that's what's been really cool about learning more and more because you're kind of our ideal customer, somebody who doesn't drink, who cares a lot about what you put in your body, and is looking, not necessarily looking for an alcohol replacement, but you like to taste delicious, like drink delicious things, and like hey, it makes me feel better in that moment. So cool, and that's what's been kind of this go to market, the sales side. Right? Like my initial thought was like, we'll be sold everywhere. This is going to be incredible. I'm like, the people who actually want this don't go to bars anymore. What are they doing at a bar if they're not drinking? And so, it's like we have all these partnerships with gyms, and we kind of found like the very into fitness person who chooses not to drink because they just want to feel better and they like to go on an early run or go on a workout, or they're training for high reps, whatever it may be. And that person is going to a bar once every 3 months. So like they're going to coffee shops. And so we've had the most success at these like lunch venue coffee shop space where people are
Mm.
going and maybe it's in the afternoon and they don't want another caffeinated coffee drink. And this is what they go for. So it's just kind of like the chill out afternoon, different version of a quote unquote like after work drink type of thing. That's really where we've been kind of nailing it.
Dude, that is literally, it's as if you're like, know what I do on a daily basis. That is exactly how I use it. So that's great
Yeah,
market research on your part. And I do CrossFit. It'd be great at a CrossFit gym. At Run Club, it'd be
totally.
awesome. Like, and a lot of run clubs end at a place like a coffee, like cafe type place you're describing. Like, so that's wild. I love that.
Yeah. And not to,
What?
we don't need to go too deep into the business side, but that's like my entire kind of like brand education model right now. Because I do, we were raising money. We don't have as much resources as many other brands, but the way that I found to like connect with people in a really intimate way and podcast is like partnering with run clubs, doing special events for CrossFit gyms and things like that. Interestingly enough, like if a gym has us in the fridge, we do okay, but people aren't like, they want like the core power protein shake. They're not like that's what they're looking for right after the workout. But on a special occasion, like a run club at night or, on the weekends, if they're doing an event, they love it. And then all of a sudden we're like, they see us at a coffee shop and they're buying it a bunch of it. So that's kind of been our way to get access to, I don't want to pretend like I know you intimately well, Cody, but I've done a lot of reflection and research on your archetype as an avatar there.
Hey, I'm here for it. Research me, man. You know me. I love brains. All right, let's move into the skeptical buyer portion here a little bit. Chloe, why don't you bring us home here?
Yeah, so what are some of the most common, criticisms or skepticisms you get from people who are hesitant to buy? What do you say about it?
So I would say the biggest thing is like people being unsure what it is. Like we're a non-alcoholic seltzer, which is great to kind of frame we're non-alcoholic and it's a carbonated drink. But they're kind of like, okay, what is this? And so going through the process of educating, like, and we make this like an herbal tea. We use these really high quality ingredients that do these things for your body. Has been kind of the why partnering with a run club where somebody is just like getting done with a run and they have time to kind of interact with me or doing a demo. There's been a lot of customer education around we're kind of creating a category like non-alcoholic seltzers did exist but don't really exist at the same time, you know. So I'd say that's the biggest thing is the customer education piece. And then the other element, which is not like a constant thing, but we do have sugar in our drinks, and a lot of the kind of general population is kind of obsessed with this zero sugar thing, you know. And I can quote all the different studies that have talked about how bad these, you know, sweetener alternatives are. And I'm sure you could do a better job of quoting those for me. But I think like people look at a can and they're like, oh my God, there's 8 grams of sugar in here. I'm like, yes. And it's raw honey and organic, a little bit of organic cane sugar, stuff that is like the highest quality sweetener that your body already knows how to process. Like I think that's not to dovetail into like the stevia and monk fruit. And I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on it. But my hypothesis is I'm a firm believer and there's no such thing as a free lunch. So if you think you can get a ultra sweet tasting thing for 0 calories and 0 sugar, like you're paying for that in a different way. Whether that's your body not being able to process it, your body thinking that it's a carbohydrate and believing it has more energy than it does. Like, I don't know. There's going to have to be more studies on this as it becomes more prevalent. But I would personally, I can't stand the taste of those things too. So I would much prefer something that tastes really good. It's a really high quality product that I know that ingredient is, you know, adding, but like, you know, honey's an incredible anti-inflammatory thing. So like, why not have that be what sweetens it as opposed to something that just makes it sweeter? So that's kind of, I'd say the education around non-alcoholic seltzer, as well as just why we even have sugar in the drink to begin with, are probably the two biggest pushbacks we get.
That makes sense. Yeah, I don't think there's enough data out there about any of this stuff, honestly. Like some people like raw sugar is generally going to spike someone's blood sugar, but these different sweeteners, some of them spike your blood sugar, some of them don't. And it's so different in so many different people. Like it's kind of wild. Like aspartame is like, can lead to anxiety. Chloe is chemical engineer. Chloe, you probably know this better than anybody.
Well, even sweeteners like that people don't realize, like maltodextrin, for example, something will be like 0 grams of sugar, sugar free basically, but there's maltodextrin. And I'm like, that's still spiking your blood glucose. If you're diabetic and you're having something with maltodextrin in it and you think it's 0 sugar, like that's still causing you harm. And so it's very, it's a very challenging, I guess, space right now that needs a light to be shined on it, because people don't understand. They think just because it's like a Diet Coke doesn't mean it's better for you. And that's also going to have effects on your digestive tract and all of that.
Totally.
Dude, that's something I will say about y'all is that you are, because one of the things we do here is look for different tactics or things that brands might use, right? So the consumers can kind of be aware of these things. And something that a lot of brands, especially in the supplement space or like the drink space or whatever, they kind of fall into this composition fallacy or this borrowed science fallacy, where if we take all of these ingredients that have proven science benefits and we put them all into one thing, then that automatically means it's equal or better, like when they're all together, which there's all sorts of logical fallacies and scientific fallacies around that. However, y'all do a really good job, honestly, on your website of putting the benefits underneath the specific ingredient. And you're not making, there are some claims about stress reduction and things like that, but you don't make like these broad reduce anxiety by 30% if you drink 4 Oslos a day or something like that. Like you honestly do a pretty good job of like keeping the benefits to the individual ingredients. So it's interesting. On your guys' website in relation to that. How do you think about that? Or is that a policy for you? Or like, how do you think about that?
I mean, you know, I'll give 2-part answers. One part is going to make me seem like a great guy. The other one's going to be just covering my own ass. But I mean, if you make a lot of health claims, you open yourself up to litigation, right? So like the last thing I want to do is promise you that something's going to happen. And to what we discussed earlier, not have the studies to back it up and actually be able to like stand on that really strongly. The other thing too is, I mean, and this is probably to my detriment in some capacity, but I have such an aversion to like, here's your magic pill. Like as someone who, we talked about like went through struggles, had to overcome them. And all of that came from me actively doing work in a specific area to get to this outcome after days, weeks, months of like putting in that work. I feel like it is my obligation to not promise you this magic pill that is going to solve all your problems with this one thing. And I think so much of, consumerism is everyone looking for that magic pill and people being like, here you go. Like I will solve all your problems, and none of it will. But those companies will probably make a lot of money in the process of doing that for you. But I really, find myself like revolted by when I see a brand do that, and I will never purchase that product. So I want to represent what I think is, a good company and a good brand in the wild.
Yeah, I love that. That makes sense. I think being transparent is the best possible thing that you can do. So I think you guys do a pretty good job of that. It is something for people to pay attention to, watch out for. That was that compensation fallacy. You get so many people, but it just doesn't make sense. All right, let's talk about the future a little bit. Chloe, this is one of Chloe's favorite questions. Chloe, you start.
What's in your product roadmap? Like, what's coming up next for you?
Yeah, so we are in the final stages of tweaking our fourth flavor. So we're going to come out with a fourth flavor within our non-alcoholic seltzer line, which will be out, I think October is the kind of the timeline that we're looking at there. The plan is to kind of stay with that 4 flavor single, product line for a bit, just to really, get our operations and everything and distribution underway with all of those. But the plan, my plan for probably mid to late next year is to eventually come out with like a second beverage line. So like another kind of similar type of product, like a non-alcoholic drink. But instead use, adaptogenic mushrooms or what have you, have a different kind of ingredient to, and a different experience of drinking that accomplishes the same kind of thing. So that's would be to come out with, I've looked at, I don't really want to do anything in the Delta 9 THC space, even though that seems like if you come up with that, people are throwing money at you immediately to go build it. And I've kind of never really believed in the CBD. I would actually love to hear your guys' thoughts on like these kind of space of different psychoactive ingredients that you can add in there that are non-alcoholic. Kava is obviously really big, but I would like to stay more in the like purely non-alcoholic and stuff that's I like to drink. Like I don't drink kava. I don't really go down a lot of those paths. And so I want to be authentic to who I am and the products that I like to have in the wild.
I mean, Chloe can dive deeper into this. She spent years in this space, but I can tell you from a brain science perspective, I'm a big fan of kava. One of the first brand partnerships I ever had was with Lalo, which was a kava drink. And so nature's Xanax. It's awesome. And you build a reverse tolerant. It's pretty cool. Loosey Goosey is another one who has some kava in their product. We've had them on the podcast. They do a pouch. It's not a drink. It's like a little pouch. It's instead of a Zen, it's a Loosey Goosey. And there's kava in there. There's ashwagandha, L-theanine, and rhodiola rosea, I believe. So I'm a big fan of kava. I've done a lot of research on that, and that's a great one. Chloe probably has some stronger opinions on some of the like CBD and some Delta 9 and these other things. Do you have any thoughts on that, Chloe?
Well, I mean, CBD, the results are very varied, very inconsistent, and then you're also working within a challenging regulatory space as well. And so, and now we have a lot of research coming out like against cannabis that increased risk, actually has negative effects in the brain. And so I just think what people are looking for when they're taking CBD is usually anti-inflammatory effects and calm mood. And I'm like, you can absolutely get that with nootropic mushrooms and then something like L-theanine. So you can mimic those same effects with a lot less risk and maybe quite a bit more precision with other ingredients. So I do agree with you, Sam, that like you can do it without CBD. I think it's almost like a buzzword where people see it or they see kava kava or people sometimes like interesting ingredients like damiana and things like that, where sometimes you can get just incredible effects with like amino acids, like
Yeah.
L-tyrosine, L-theanine.
Well, that's, going back to the selling you the magic pill. It's like, it is incredible how good you feel when you just are properly hydrated, get 8 hours of sleep, and eat an actually a whole food diet.
Dude,
It's like
yes.
that's the pill that you should be having so much more than anything else.
Oh
And
my
so
God,
that's
yeah.
yeah. So
Bro, are you allowed to share the flavor at all? Like, is it freaking pumpkin spice out here in October, or like, or is it top secret right now?
it is. I feel pretty confident about the flavor direction we're going. I wish it was my goal was to have it out in the summer. It's definitely more of a summer drink, but we needed to get it out this calendar year. Um, it is a blood orange hibiscus ginger. Um, so it
Ooh,
is honestly incredible. It's like I mean, I think all of our flavors are really really good. This is the one that I tried. So that is what I want to drink all the time.
damn.
So
Sounds good.
I'm trying to move up the production date as much as possible. It looks like October is when it would be.
Who is a big strategic partner in your industry or someone who you'd love to work with? Like, do you have any like a dream partnership that you'd love to do?
I think there's several different ways. There's so many people that I would love to work with. I think the my pragmatic brain is like, I just want more distribution partners. I think that's the thing that I've learned in the transition from software to to physical product space is distribution paths it is just insane when you're dealing with like actual physical things that you're moving. I'm used to closing a deal and you install a line of code and we're like, well, let's rock, man. We got this going. And now it's like, okay, I got to deal with the logistics and the supply chain and all these different things. So right now we have a couple of distribution partners that are amazing. But in order to get into some of these bigger, Whole Foods, Sprouts, natural grocers of the world, you need to be in like the more kind of, there's two, KE and UNFI are the two main distributors that service all of those. And ideally going to be working with them in the very near term. Outside of that, you know, just to get a shout out Kristen Holmes again, Dr. Kristen Holmes. She was my like dream. The fact that like the chief data science officer of Whoop is somebody who I could call a friend and advisor now. That's pretty incredible. But I think having more people kind of like yourselves that are very, I actually don't really love the term health conscious. It kind of almost feels a little negative, but like very, into health,
Yeah.
wellness, understanding how your body works, your brain works, being intentional about what you put in and being reflective on like, how did that make me feel? And do I want to do that again? Those are the type of people that I love to talk to, number one, but also I think would be people that would really enjoy our products. And so those would love to work with as many of those as possible.
Cool. All right. Well, if you're listening, people, reach out to Sam.
Yeah.
I've got a couple ideas in mind as well. So I like to ask that
Cool.
question just so we can kind of know. All right, let's move into Lightning Lab. We're kind of bringing this in for a landing. We got two questions for you. One's from us. One's from a previous guest. Chloe,
Okay.
which one do you want to ask?
We ask this on every podcast episode, but what's one question you wish people would ask you more? It can be anything. It can be Hazlo related, life related.
I think, to not to bring it like we're all mapping for the journaling piece. I wish more people asked me about journaling and kind of like mindfulness practices and different ways of doing that. Which honestly many people do. I've been somebody who I like, for some reason last year I just started like sharing that I would be journaling at early hours and whatnot. And it's caused a lot of really great conversations. But I think journaling is one of those things where people build it up to be a way more challenging practice than it actually is. It is actually the lowest barrier to entry thing where you just like, what are you thinking right now? Write it down. And I think that as we've all talked about, there's so many benefits to just doing that on a consistent basis. And so being able to kind of share my journey of like discovering journaling and the benefits it's had for me, and also lower their expectations of what a journal entry is supposed to look like, so they feel more inclined and excited to go and take part in that. That'd probably be my answer there.
Love that.
I love that. Yeah, so many people do make it out to be way. I oftentimes, can you just start with saying one sentence or just do a word of the day? Start with a word of the day. Like, it's just, it doesn't have to be full ass morning pages, or there's some like the Miracle Morning has journaling or scribing, I think is what it's called in there. But
yeah,
Interesting. Speaking of journaling, Glenn Paradise from Deep Sleepwear is the person who left this question for you. So every guest gets to leave a question for the next guest without knowing who they are. And Glenn asked, is it more important to make a name for yourself or provide humanity with something important?
I would wholeheartedly say provide humanity with something important. And that's not just, fear of sounding egotistical and getting backlash for that. So it's actually, like I mentioned yesterday, I was presenting to a group of investors, and one of the small tweaks I've made to this investor pitch is dedicating a slide to talking about, the impact that this product has had on people. As I shared the person's mom who's going through, breast cancer treatment. Another person, this happened, 3 weeks ago, but I got a random DM to my personal Instagram account from this person who I never met before, but talking about how he, was dealt with a lot of trauma in her life, a very dysregulated person, wound up coping with that with alcohol and had to go, to the point of like needing to go sober years ago, had something occur recently to the point where like in the past it is likely to relapse. And her friend ended up coming over in that moment, bringing her some Oslo. She tried it, and it was the most head to toe tranquility she's ever felt in those moments.
Hey.
And more anecdotal evidence, but it's I can't express to you how incredible of a moment that was to read that message, and not literally like just I think what I think is possible now is like if many people can experience that, like the world will just be a better place. Like I can't, like, just like I talked about, people asking me about journaling. If everyone journaled, the world would be a better place. If everyone was able to realize that like you don't need to find a external exogenous substance so many times in order to deal with whatever's happening internally, the world will be a better place. And I think, I will happily forego any form of acclaim or people knowing that I had anything to do with it if that.
That's beautiful. I thought it was an interesting question because it's like, dude, if you do something that changes the world and makes humanity better, you will be remembered, I feel like the only answer is to help humanity. So that's beautiful. I'm glad that that's your mission as well. And it sounds like you guys are having some really powerful. I refer to my, I refer to my clients. I mean, I'll tell you that we have the lab results section next where Chloe and I kind of talk about if we use it, if we would buy it and things like that. And I suggest it to my clients who I work mostly with ambitious women who are burnt out. They're in the hustle and hibernate space and they're grabbing a glass of wine at nighttime, binge watching Netflix. And I'm like, dude, why don't you try this instead? So that's, I love that. Is there any place that you'd like to point people as we kind of wrap up? Or any final thoughts you have for people?
Yeah. I would say, obviously you can find everything about us on Drink Oslo, and Oslo is spelled Hazlo. So go to our website, go to our Instagram. My name is Sam Moore. I'm sam.e.moore on Instagram. And LinkedIn, I'm the only full-time employee at Oslo. So you can find me really easily if you just search Oslo. I think what pointing people to, I'm so curious about what other people are doing right now to deal with things, life, anxiety, work troubles and whatnot. And, you share the anecdotal stuff of your clients and going, why? I think what has gotten me here was just like interacting with people and then reflecting back how they were coping with things, or, and if this helped, right? I would love to know kind of what's out there. And it sounds like Kava is an incredible thing for me to go. I've been recommended a brand called Kava Haven often. Are you familiar with them?
I haven't heard of them.
Yeah, I need to go. I'm gonna go try some Kava. I'd love to just hear what else is out there. Just because I'm curious as somebody who wants to figure out ways to enjoy my after work moments and not I love my product, but sometimes I want to try something else too. So having some options will be good.
We haven't had them on yet, but Prepare Your Mind is another good one that I've that we work with and we are interviewing them soon, and they have some cool products and stuff. So, and they're amino acid based. So it could be another one for you to check out and look out. So awesome. Well, appreciate you hopping on with us.
The amino acids.
Yeah, they're cool. Yeah, they have these mood shoes that I think you'd find interesting. That are mostly amino acid based. And Robin Williams' son created this company after his dad passed away to help him with complex trauma. So
That's incredible. Yeah. So yeah, the sorry, my audio just my headphones died. That's what just happened there. But yeah, that's amazing. I mean, Robin, obviously we don't need to go on a tangent. Robin Williams is incredible and very, very sad end of the story, but very cool that his son is doing that.
Yeah, it's cool. So cool. Well, we appreciate you hopping on. That's it for our conversation with Sam. But as everyone else knows, Colin and I are about to do some lab results and talk to you with our thoughts on would we use this, would we not, that kind of stuff. So stick around for that while we say bye to Sam.
Bye, everyone. Thanks so much for the conversation.
Thanks, Sam.
We're back, party peeps. It's time for lab results. This is where we get to break down what we really thought about our guest today. Chloe, gut feeling, or not gut feeling, but initial thoughts. Sorry.
I loved interviewing him. He was just good vibes, fun energy. I haven't personally had the opportunity to try Hazlo, but looking at the ingredients, I think it's smart. Like, it's a carbonated beverage. They've got electrolytes in there, which is amazing. They're using honey for sugar, which in my opinion is one of my favorite sweeteners, and they've got great adaptogens in there. So for me, I'm like, okay, like looking at those ingredients, there's nothing high risk. They're all pretty effective. I definitely try it.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I have tried it. I have used it and I do enjoy it. Like, some of the purple flavor is an acquired taste, but the green and yellow, I think it's lime something and lemon something, are so freaking good. So I love them and I feel them or whatever. I think they're too early to really give a prescriptive, like, did they pass a lab test or not? I feel like the lab test is a little bit more for like harder core scientific claims, but the basic ingredients that they use are great ones, correct? Like, if we could just use the ingredients they're using, which again is not a very good, like, when ingredients come together or they're in different dosages or things like that, they don't always match clinical studies and stuff like that. But directionally, like, they've got ginkgo, they've got ginseng, they've got magnesium, spearmint, lavender, holy basil. Like, give the people your thoughts on these things. Like, I know this is your space.
These are all adaptogens that have been used for a number of years, like ginkgo, ginseng. This has been used in traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurveda for like hundreds of years. We have a lot of research and anecdotal evidence that works. So like you said, aside from if somebody's pregnant, which unfortunately with pregnancy, you have to be very careful with basically anything that you are ingesting. I don't see anything risky about it. I think in my mind, I look at that, I'm like, oh, okay, it's going to be a little bit uplifting from the ginseng, but mostly calming from the other ingredients, the other adaptogens.
Right. Yeah, that's how I feel about it. I usually drink it afternoonish time. I don't usually drink it before bed. I found personally ginseng kind of keeps me awake sometimes. There's still more research that needs to be done. He said they're looking to potentially do some more research. So I'm excited to see some of that stuff for like specific claims. But directionally, I think it's absolutely something that I would suggest people try out. I give it to people and clients and things like that. So take that with a grain of salt, if you will. And so, yeah, I would absolutely buy this and do. So go for it if you guys are interested. Was there any lessons learned or big surprises that you pulled from the episode?
One thing I really liked about the episode of learning from him and his journey. Well, two things actually. And it's not necessarily about the product. One, it was about you can have a fancy job title and the respect of your friends and family and be making fantastic money and still not be happy. So it's really important to like live a life that's fulfilling to you. Not fulfilling, like that doesn't just look good on the outside. It has to feel good on the inside. So it was just another person to prove that theory. And then number two, I really liked how he had the mentality, and this is a similar mentality to many successful founders, as he was like, okay, I want to start a beverage. Who can I speak to? I want to speak to every single person so that I can learn from other people that have done it. And I think that's one of the best ways to go about doing that. I think that's very valuable information.
Yeah, without a doubt. And he did it with customers. He did it with investors. He did it with the mixologist lady. I mean, it was just beautiful. So I agree. Those are some of my biggest takeaways as well. Just that mentality of he had that gut intuition multiple times and he followed it. And I just think that founder mentality, and not everybody does that. He didn't articulate that specifically, which is, it's hard to read the label from inside the bottle. So he might not even recognize that or realize that about himself. Not everyone listens to that voice that says, I hate this. They just stay stuck. Yeah. He did something about it. It just makes so much sense that he would become a founder and like do what he's doing. So I think that's inspirational. And I really, really We have Action Academy. We talk about taking action all the time, and that's a huge piece. The biggest part of taking action is taking freaking action. Like, it's wild. We were talking to, like, it's just surprise, surprise. Like, people do all these things. And we were talking to somebody yesterday, like doing all of these crazy things. There's the saunas and all of the botanicals and the IV and all this stuff to help their body recover, except for actually resting. And so it was just blunt force multiple times in his career and life so far. He's just taking the action. So that was something I thought was awesome. Cool. Any other thoughts or anything else overall from the pod? I mean, I thought it was great. Great conversation. It was hard to find any, like, we dive deep with these things, but it's hard to find anything like super, like, glaringly, like, what the heck are you claiming right now? Or like anything like that. So they're pretty transparent with what they talk about. We love that. We're not here to MF anybody. We're here to help people make better decisions. And transparent companies make it easier for us and consumers to make better decisions. That's
completely agree. Yeah, nothing else on my end.
Beautiful. All right. Well, thank you everyone for hopping in today. That's a wrap for Decision Lab today. If you have people that you think we should talk to, brands we should talk to, if you see an ad and you're like, oh, that's sus, like, DM it to me or Chloe. My friends do this all the time. So please send us stuff that you're curious about or want to know more about, or a brand that, or a founder you want us to have on, or an expert you want us to talk to, and we'll bring them to you. We can reach out through our personal brands and generally get a response where you might not, and can talk to these founders and have conversations with them for you. So please hit us up with those. We love doing this. We love talking with you guys, and we'll see you next time on the Decision Lab. Peace.
Bye.